Bryan Soltis. I'm a software engineer at Business, and I'm a Kentico MVP. And this session is, it's kind of gray in some areas, meaning I'm just going to kind of talk about what we do when we migrate an existing site to Kentico, and then I'm going to show you some ways that we move data and things that we do that I think would help somebody if they were going to plan to do this. As much as Eric may not like it, I'm not going to migrate his site to Kentico in the next 30 minutes. But I'll try to show you some tips and stuff that I've learned along the way that hopefully will help out. And I will tell you there's stuff in this slide that Americans will get, but this being Europe, you may not get some of them, but that's okay. I left them in there because I'll just see. So anyway, that's what I just said we're going to do. Okay, so whenever we start talking about moving a site to Kentico, the very first thing we do with our clients is we really try to figure out what are we doing? What is it you want to do? Are you moving an existing site from one to the other and it's going to be exactly the same? Are you going to have more, are you going to just move data and you need to build a new site and just move the data over? Are you going to move multiple sites and maybe consolidate them all into one, which we have a lot of clients that do that. They may have a number of websites within their organization, and they need to have them all in one area, so they want to use a good content management system like Kentico CMS to manage them all together. So we actually run into that a good bit. They may have a .NET new site or a Drupal site or something like that. If we can combine them all into one Kentico installation, it's a heck of a lot easier for them to manage it. Do they want new things that the site doesn't currently do? Often, if we're moving a site, it will be a deprecated either technology or just an old style and design. So when we have a new site, we often introduce, well, there's a thing called Facebook and Twitter, so you might want to get those into your site. So we sometimes do that, and we also talk about the actual design itself, and that's. Sometimes clients won't let us redesign, but we'd like to. But does it have a brand new design? Is it going to be presented the same way? Or are they just going to take their existing design and move on? These are all things that we kind of deal with as we work. And then hosting. That's always a discussion as well. Do they want us to help them with hosting? Do they want to host it themselves? Where is it being hosted? These kinds of things. So this is one of the pictures. I will buy someone a beer if they can tell me what that is. Only one person in the U.S. did. Okay. This is from a bad movie from the 80s called The Last Starfighter. And that is the ship. So I don't expect anyone in this room to understand what that means. So it's a 80s reference movie. Anyway, so in the design process, we have the benefit of having 5 graphic designers, so I never have to worry about design. They just make it work and they make it look good. But what they do is they go through the customer, and a lot of times they have to help them figure out what's the new design, if it is a redesign of the site. Do they have a new logo? Do they want a logo? And then from there, our designers basically build up those designs, and they really try to, whenever we redesign a site and we move something over, we definitely pay attention to the look and feel of the site, how the user experience is, what they, how are they going to interact with it, and what kind of social integration and stuff like that. So these are all things that we deal with. Do they have like a legacy design, or do they have other sites it needs to mimic? And it does come in if some people, if we weren't going to do the ASPX model or the portal method. It's funny, if anyone has known me a very long time, I used to say, we only do ASPX. Why would I ever want to do the portal method? That's ridiculous. I'm a developer, I would do ASPX. And actually that's a funny story, because we did a training thing in the US a couple years ago, and I was in a room with like 10 other partners, and it was me and one other guy, and we're like, we only do ASPX. I'm a developer, I don't do the portal. And everybody's like, you're an idiot, you should do the portal method. And I said, that's ridiculous. And then I did the portal method, and I was like, I was an idiot. I should do the portal method, it's so much faster. But we have to still take that into account. We do have some clients that they want it to be the SPX method for whatever reason or something like that. So these are all kinds of things that we look at as we go through the development process. So the big thing that we have, especially with this time of year, is the new version of Kentico. So as we move a site to Kentico, they're exposed to a lot more functionality that they most certainly are getting with something else. I mean, Kentico has 70 modules. I mean, that's a huge amount of functionality that's available to a user. And often if they're having us, make a new site for them, or if they're moving the site over, we can use those new features in the new site, and it's really going to enhance the experience. We definitely, first thing, we use check-in, check-out, which a lot of sites don't even have something like that. That helps them maintain the content and workflows. Those are probably the two biggest ones that we immediately use our workflows, because that's really to protect the user from themselves. When they start changing content and deleting stuff, we can roll it back. Or to make sure that it looks right before it goes into the site. But things like the mobile, obviously designing the site for the mobile, if you're not thinking of doing that, I think it's pretty clear the message is you should be thinking of doing it. And things like reporting, we make custom reports for some users and stuff like that, and some clients to give them new information that they're probably not used to getting. So, okay, so data. This is really what my examples are going to be about, ways that you can get data from one side into the other one. The import toolkit. How many people have used the import toolkit? Okay, I'm going to show you why you want to use the import toolkit, because it's awesome. File import and export, media libraries. We take a lot of our images and we prefer to use media libraries because that enables us to manage them a lot easier. And plus, if you have a site of 400 images, it's real easy to drop a folder and then just go import, as opposed to having to do that manually. We do a lot of custom document types and custom tables to handle that content and to take it from one system to the other one. And we do a lot of shared content, especially if they have multiple sites in a single installation. And when all this fails, we just get some kid to do it, pay them poorly. So, it's good. All right. So we also do a lot of integration work, and that's another thing that we definitely talk with our users about and the clients as we move these sites over, because everyone has more than one system that they're dealing with. But as you develop and as you make a site for a client, you really need to get a 360-degree approach so that it's one ecosystem for them where all their systems are connected. So we do a lot of integration, whether it's with CRM or third-party things like Great Plains or Dynamics or Salesforce. And I'm a huge fan of scheduled tasks. Everybody use scheduled tasks? Okay, so that demo won't be as exciting for you, but the people that have not seen it, I'll show that. I use scheduled tasks a lot, and I actually use them probably for more integration than I do anything else. But then that uses the custom module loader, which that is something that I'll talk about a little bit, but that's a little more technical. But basically, if you wanted to override a particular functionality within Kentico, like if the site had an error, an exception, Kentico will log that, and it will send you about 4 million emails if you have invalid use date, and stuff like that. But if you wanted something else to happen, maybe you wanted that exception to be logged into a bug tracking system. In previous versions of Kentico, they gave you the code to do it, but essentially what you had to do was you had to create a new project for the custom exception handler, compile that DLL, and then reference that within your site so that then you can pull the new functionality. With the custom module loader, you don't have to do that pre-compilation. You can do it all within. I'll try to show you a little bit. I did have a little bit of that demo as well, but we use that a lot to override specific things and to handle more of that integration. And then there's the Kentico Marketplace. And who has ever downloaded something from the Kentico Marketplace? Who has ever put anything into the Kentico Marketplace? Excellent. That's good. I was actually just talking with the guys at Kentico that run DevNet in the Marketplace, and they were kind of asking me, well, how will we get more people to do it, to use the Marketplace? And I said, I don't know. I think people just have to have a need, and then they put it up there for that. Okay. So this next slide, same thing applies. I'll buy you a beer. You can tell me what that is. Nobody? That's an Atari game. Its name is Barnstorming, and I used to play this all the time when I was a little kid. And it got released in 1982. So it has nothing to do with anything. I just thought it was interesting. Okay, so now I'm going to do some demos. Okay. All right, for this example, I have a website, and you do not see it. Okay, let me add this over. Okay, so this is my sample website, and I have a bunch of Simpson quotes. And I need to move this data from this site, and maybe I'm migrating, so I created a new Kentico site, and I need to get this data over there. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do that, and ways that we have done it that make a lot of sense. And the first one I was going to use is the import toolkit. So let me show you a little bit of the structure of this first. Okay, so this is just a little sample database, and it has some quotes in it, and it's just a simple data structure showing that. So if you use the import toolkit inside Kentico, it allows you to specify what you want to move and where you want to move it to. And more importantly, is you can save a particular profile of what you did so that you can remember what you did and you don't have to worry about it. Now I'm going to step through this, but this is just make it easier for me. So the first part of the toolkit is you have to say you have a backup. And of course I have a backup. I always have a backup every time I do anything. So I will check the box to hereby confirm that. So I do not sue Kentico for destroying my site. So from here, you have to decide what it is you want to import. And you basically, you're saying, what are you going to? I haven't told it what I want to bring in yet. I'm telling you, what am I going to do it? What am I going to import into? And you can import into documents, custom tables, objects, online forums, resource strings, lots of stuff. But I'm going to pick documents, and there's only one side of my installation, but if I have multiple sites, and that's actually important. This is I have to tell it where the project is. And as it connected to that, it already went into the database for that particular site, and it knows what sites are in that installation and what's available. Okay. So it knows I'm going in there, and I want to import it as something. And these are all the different document types that it can import. And I made a new document type called quote. And you decide what you want to do, if you want to import it as a new item or an existing one or skip existing ones. And that just deals with, as the data is coming in, how's Kentico going to handle it. Then you have to tell it where are you getting information from. And you can do a number of things. Typically when we do a migration of a site, if we can get the database, then it's easier for us just to connect right to the database to do it. Sometimes we're not that lucky and we get like an Excel file or something, or an XML file, and we can use that as well. It doesn't really matter. Kentico will read from wherever you tell it, or the import toolkit will read from wherever you tell it, and then you can define what to do with the data from there. So here, it knows that it wants to know which table, and then we have the quotes, and I could do a where condition on it and stuff like that. Now this is only visible because I'm pulling it from SQL Server. If I was doing it from XML or something, it would just read the data, but it knows I can pull it from SQL Server and stuff, so I have a little bit more features of where and order bys and stuff like that. And then it goes and it looks at that data, and it gives me a preview of okay, this is what you said you wanted to import. Here's what it actually looks like. And that looks like what I want to import, so that's good. Now from here, this screen is a little bit tricky because there's a number of fields, and what you're doing is the document type has a number of fields as well as every document type has some standard fields. And you have to define where your data matches up with that one. Sometimes Kentico will pick it. I think they look for things like date. Like it knows that I have a field called quote date, and then it knows the date I'm pulling in has a field called quote date, so it's pretty smart on that. But other things are not quite as intuitive, and that is like the node alias. It has to have a node alias when it pulls it in, but it may not figure out what it is. So I know that I have a column called display name, and so I want to pick that one because that's the most logical one for me to make the document or the node alias out of and stuff like that. And the only other one is it never fills in the culture. You have to define a culture, but it never fills it in, so you have to always write in the culture what it is. And then down here, this is where you can specify where you want the content to go within the site. Because it's a document, I'm pulling in documents, I have to tell it where in the content tree it is. I could put in a path here to the site of where it is within the site I want to be, but actually it's easier for me if I just find the node ID of where that is. Let me show you where that one's from. Okay, so I'm actually going to bring it under here, under quotes. And if I go over here, I can see that node ID right there. So it's just easier for me that way. That way I don't have to worry about typing or mistyping, which is probably what I probably do. I can just put in that ID and it will pull it in. So now that I have that, it's going to look through, and this is a sample of what it's going to create and how the fields actually line up in terms of Kentico and the document type. I could simulate it, but I'm feeling risky, so I'm just going to go. But you could simulate the data and it will tell you what it's going to do. Actually, I'll just show you that real quick. That's fine. So this is going to go through and it's basically looking at each item that it found and it will tell me what it will happen with that particular item. And so this is really good so that you can simulate the import process without actually changing your data. Because if you had something wrong in your data, that maybe something didn't get converted right or something within Kentico, this will tell you before you actually do it on your site. So now I have to go. And now I'm actually going to import it this time. So, because it said everything was going to import correctly. So we'll do this again. And it will tell me what happens up here. Now the first version of the toolkit, Martin wrote this, Martin Harmonic. And the first version, I think he just did it just to solve some need that he had. And he thought, I think people would actually like this. And so he wrote it. It had a few little bugs here and there, which was kind of funny. It would only process 100 records at a time. And if you did more than 100, it would crash. So every time I tried to use it, I had to break everything up into groups of 100. But then I think the user community really adopted it and really liked it. So they made it better, and now it's actually just part of the Kentico install to do it. So here we go. So it says I have 7 created, and I can close this, but the handy thing is I can save that profile of all those settings so that if I were to do the same import again, I don't have to go back and type it. I can just do it all from it. I just pull it in from that file. So if I go back over to my site now, and if I go to the CMS desk, I should see some quotes. And sure enough, there are my quotes. So that, let me hit the actual site. I closed it. Okay. So there's my site, and there are my quotes. So that's how you can use the import toolkit to do that. Now, we do use the import toolkit as we migrate content over to the site, and we bring it over from an existing one, especially if we can get it in a way that is, that's malleable for us, whether it's Excel. Preferably we want it back into the database, but we do use the import a good bit. But then there's also the concept of ongoing integration and ongoing data imports. So in this little scenario, that's the old database. This is my Kentico site. And I created another table in here. And it's just a sample table, and it has more quotes in it. And the concept for this demo is maybe you have some other system that's generating these quotes, so you want an ongoing synchronization and migration of data. And so something else put these quotes here, and now I just need to sync them in. And it doesn't have to be within the Kentico site, that just makes it easy for my demo. But what I did is I made a task, a scheduled task, and I like to name things funny, so it's the data syncer 5000. And what this is going to do is it's going to go through, it's going to use the API to figure out are there any quotes to import, and it does that by going into the database. And then what I do here, and I guess I can't reach that far, so I'll have to use this. So what I'm doing is I'm finding the parent node of the 578, and then if that exists, then I'm going to loop through all my records, and I'm going to create a node Well, actually, it's going to look to see if that node exists already based off of the display I named. And if it doesn't exist, then I'm going to create a new node. And so this is basically using the API to automatically create this data inside there. And then I'll just keep track and figure out what it is. Now, other things we do is as we migrate sites over, I told you about the functionality. We use the event log a lot. I use it a lot. Every time I do something, I write it into the event log because it's so easy using that API. And you can log exceptions in the event log, or you can just log events. And I recommend you do that. Now, the scheduled tasks have a feature that you can pass data to a scheduled task. And it's actually up here at the top. You can do task info. And that's really anything you want to pass in, any kind of text. So what we typically do, and I'll show you in the UI where you define that, we'll pass like a bit, like a true or false. And then in our code, I will say, I'll have if ti dot is true dot data is true, then I know to debug it, and I'll write even more to the event log. Otherwise, I'll do just kind of basic logging within there. So this is my scheduled task. So within Kentico, I have under here is my scheduled task that I already have in here, and that's not it. It's right there. There's my sync. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger. I guess I can't. It's not going to do that. But this is where you can define that task data. And you can actually pass some conditions as to whether it runs or not. And with version 7, they actually gave you more features here. You can have it runs in a particular user, because by default it runs as like the administrator, but maybe you want the task to run as an individual user. And you can do that, and you can reset how many times you can execute it. This is really going to run in a separate thread, especially if you have a long-running task of this kind of data integration. That's really good because it relieves overhead on your actual website, and you put that in a separate thread and run it separately. So I'm going to run this task. We're all going to cross our fingers, and it's a very quick task. So it's probably going to say total quote added form. And if I jump over here to my site, I probably should have shown you the table. That's that table. That's that sync table. And it actually looks like it has a problem. One of them did not. But if I refresh this now, you should see even more quotes. Now we have more quotes in there. So that's a way that you can use scheduled tasks. Now I have that set up just to run once, on a manual basis. But if you set that up to run every night, your other system, or maybe the user's legacy, system on the back end of what we often deal with is people that want products, but they want to maintain them in some other system, but they want them to exist inside of Kentico. Now, it's better if they just do it all inside of Kentico, but sometimes they have established systems of, customer tracking and their kind of homegrown CRM or something over here where the products are. We'll use a scheduled task that runs nightly to synchronize that product data over to keep the two in sync going forward. And then just to show you the event log, there's my event log where I wrote it in there, and it tells me all stuff about it. Now I could write a lot more. I just wrote basically the same thing the scheduled task writes out in its own UI. I wrote the same thing, but if I wanted to write more, I could have broken it down and shown every quote I imported or something, and did that. And one last thing that I'll show you that this is stuff we think about is our quote page doesn't look very good. It's kind of boring, and it's a real basic transformation where I just kind of pull that in. So what I'll do within Kentico version 7 is I can do this cool feature of using the transformation preview to see what it would look like. So I'm going to change this transformation to show that it could look a little bit better. And this is a new feature. By default, actually, it looks like this. That's what you're probably used to seeing. But if you click the preview, you can actually see what the changes are over there. So if I wanted to go, maybe let's make that bold. And then I always do that because I'm used to hitting control. Sorry. There we go. And if I save that, then I can see the actual preview of what that looks like without ever having going out of the site to do it. And I have a better looking one that I've already made up. That looks a little better. It doesn't look all that different. But if I save that, then now we're actually looking a little bit better. So you can use that preview feature to test out what's going on in your site to do that as well. Okay. And that's about it. I could show you one other thing, because I have 5 minutes. Tom told me 2 minutes ago I had 5 minutes, and James just told me 5 minutes. So that was that 5 minutes. Let me show you one other thing. This is just a cool one, and the new social integration web parts and stuff. I'll just put it on that page. Is you can drop things in now to do real easy integration stuff. So, wrong thing. Under here, this is the new web part selector. Definitely makes that easier. You can move this around too. This web part selector we put on the left, top, bottom. There's stuff in the middle. But the social media stuff, I want to do not Pinterest, because I don't know what that is. But like a Twitter feed, I can pull that into the page. And it wants to know what I'm doing, and I'll say bye. And that's just me. And now if I go to the page, let's see if Twitter's going to update. And there it is. So you can drop things like that in very quickly. And stuff like that. So that's more as you migrate these sites over. Kentico is continually adding functionality and features like that, and you really need to be paying attention to it because they're saving you a lot of work to do this stuff. And yes, the Twitter one is probably going to break in the next 6 months because Twitter is changing their API. But Kentico has already told me that they're going to work on that and fix it as soon as they change it, then they'll update the web parts to fix it as well when Twitter does change the API. But, okay, I'm sorry, you had a question.
The code that you demonstrated before, the scheduled tasks, we've written lots of code like that, looks very familiar. Mm-hmm. One of the challenges we've had is checking to see if the document exists before creating it or updating it. Seems to be quite an intense process. It takes quite a while to do.
Are you saying when you use, like, when you're looking at the document tree,
yes,
it takes a long time?
Yeah, we've got lots of records to go through, and most of the tasks can run for hours and hours. Are there any tips you can offer for improvement?
Well, I mean, obviously, the less you make Kentico work, the better. The faster it'll be. So if you can isolate where you're looking, or are you just kind of looking throughout the entire site on the scheduled tasks?
It's in specific areas, but it's lots of records.
Lots of records?
Yeah.
I mean, if you use the API allows you to get in there very quickly. Oh, well, I should say, the API is very easy to look into the content tree, but there's a lot of overhead, especially if you have like workflows and if you have publishing. Because even then, as you make documents, you have to like automatically publish it if it's under the workflow and stuff like that. My sample is kind of basic, I don't have that. I've experienced that too, and the only thing I could say is maybe to isolate what you're looking at specifically, or if you wanted to, you could do something like maybe cache, save like, or you could just look at the database directly if you knew the structure of what you're looking for. Like I would maybe do something like that. If I was just changing a document type, depends on what you're doing, but if you're just changing like a document type some data in it, I would maybe just go straight to the document type table and then just do my query within SQL right there, which would be very fast. But if you're manipulating an actual document, I don't know any other way. I mean, you probably could by doing it through the database and SQL, but you're going to lose all the functionality of the API, and it kind of packages so many calls up for you that it would be.
I'm nervous about going away from the API. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, it's not fun. You don't want to go too far from the API. That's your home.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about that. We can talk about it afterward. I'll have to think of some other ways. Maybe if I understood exactly what you're doing, then we'll talk about it and I'll see. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Just, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was looking at
that content importing utility, how mature is that in previous versions of Kentico?
They came out version 5.5, I believe, 5.5 R2. The first version was it was good. It looked actually very similar. It did work, it just had some bugs. And then I think Martin had just made it I don't know why he made it. I think he just thought about it. That would be neat. And so he made one. And then more people used it, and so they made it a lot better. So it's very mature now, and it's actually just part of the Kentico install, and it works great. I don't have any problem with it. It's generally a problem with the data you're pulling in and not passing it to the right area, or the data you have, it can't, I mean, it's really just doing SQL calls against that data, and it just facilitates the execution of the SQL to do the insert. But if the data it's pulling in is not formatted right or there's something wrong, then the import toolkit won't go past there. But the tool itself is very mature, and I mean, I could use it. I have no problem using it for all kinds of stuff. So, anyone else? All right, thank you.
That's right.